The sun hung low over the rolling hills of Carver County, casting a golden glow across the 3 acres that Daniel Harper called home. With the deed clutched in his weathered hands, he stood at the edge of his property, watching his small herd of rescue goats nibble at the grass. 50 years ago, his grandfather had bought this land, a patchwork of fertile soil and stubborn dreams, passing it down through the generations until it landed in Daniel's care. For decades, it had been a sanctuary, a place where the Harper family's sweat mingled with the earth, where their footsteps wore paths through the fields. Now, at 68, Daniel faced a fight he never imagined. Criminal charges over the very animals that had kept him sane after losing his wife, Evelyn, to cancer 2 years prior. Daniel had spent 30 years as a county agricultural advisor, a man known throughout the region for his quiet wisdom. Farmers trusted him with their questions about crop rotation, livestock care, or the maze of government regulations. He'd retired with a sense of purpose fulfilled, downsizing his father's cattle operation to a handful of goats, each a character in its own right. There was Hank, the grizzled old buck who trailed Daniel like a shadow, Maisie and Clover, the inseparable sisters with a penchant for mischief, and Newton, the wiry little escape artist who twice outsmarted the gate latch before Daniel upgraded it. After Evelyn's death, their bleeding became his alarm clock, their care his tether to the world. Animal therapy, the doctors called it. Daniel just called it survival. 7 years ago, the first signs of change crept in. Suburban sprawl sprouted around his property, rows of houses with manicured lawns. Families who waved politely as they unpacked moving vans. Kids would stop by the fence, wide-eyed, asking to pet the goats. Daniel would hand them carrots and spin tales of farming life, their laughter a small bridge between his world and theirs. When the Oak Hollow Homeowners Association formed 5 years back, its first president, a gruff but decent man named Paul, had assured Daniel his land was safe. A heritage property, Paul had called it, shaking Daniel's hand over the fence. Adds soul to the place. Daniel had believed him. But that trust shattered last spring when Cynthia Reynolds took over as HOA president. She arrived with a clipboard and a smirk, her sharp eyes scanning Daniel's land like a predator sizing up prey. 3 days earlier, her brother, Nathan, had been sworn in as a city council member, a detail she didn't mention when she showed up at Daniel's door. "Mr. Harper," she'd said, her voice dripping with false authority, "I'm here for an official HOA inspection. New municipal guidelines require compliance." She waved a document labeled Draft Municipal Code Re-VY Science, its watermark glaringly OBVYS. Daniel, ever the reasonable man, pointed it out. "These aren't even law yet." Her smile tightened. "They will be. My brother's committee is fast-tracking them. Time to bring relics like this into the modern age." A week later, the first letter arrived certified, official cold. 30 days to remove his livestock or face legal action under public health ordinances. Daniel called the city, and a clerk confirmed the code cited didn't exist yet. He wrote a polite but firm response, assuming that would end it. He was wrong. The second letter escalated the threat. Daily fines, criminal charges, and a claim that HOA rules pre-VY usly inapplicable to his exempt property now demanded compliance. When he called Cynthia, her tone was ice. "The council votes next month. Nathan chairs the committee. This is law now, Mr. Harper. Comply or fight and you won't win." Daniel stood in his kitchen, staring out at Hank nosing through the grass, oblivious to the storm brewing. This wasn't about goats. Something bigger was afoot, and he needed to uncover it before it swallowed his family's legacy whole. The neighborhood fractured fast. Old-timers like Ruth Coleman, who'd lived across the road for decades, rallied to Daniel's side. She dropped off a pecan pie one evening, her voice trembling with indignation. "They fined me for my birdhouses last month. This HOA's lost its mind." But the newer residents, lured by Cynthia's talk of a progressive, modern community, turned cold. A Facebook group, Modernize Oak Hollow, popped up plastered with grainy photos of Daniel's barn and captions like "Time to elevate our standards" and "Farming doesn't belong here." One post called his property a blight on progress. His neighbor, Tom, a mechanic with a knack for gadgets, showed him the page on his phone. "This feels orchestrated, Dan. They're coming for you." Then the notes, started anonymous, typed, slipped into his mailbox. "The council's already decided. You're finished. People like you don't belong in a growing town." Daniel's blood pressure, once steady as the seasons, began to climb. His doctor noticed at a routine checkup, frowning at the numbers. "What's going on, Dan?" He brushed it off, too stubborn to admit the toll it was taking. One evening, as the deadline loomed, Tom, Ruth, and a retired librarian named Clara showed up with casseroles and stories of their own HOA battles. "They fined me for a tomato plant," Clara huffed. "A tomato plant." They laughed, but the humor was thin. Something was shifting in Oak Hollow, something dark and deliberate, and Daniel felt it pressing against his chest. The morning the city's preliminary inspection notice arrived, that pressure became literal. He opened the envelope in his driveway, and pain seared through him sharp, unrelenting. His VY sound blurred, the world tilting as he gripped the mailbox. He fumbled for his phone, dialed 911, and blacked out. He woke in the hospital, oxygen hissing through a tube, a young doctor peering down at him. "A cardiac event," she said. "Not a heart attack, but close. Your stress is killing you, Mr. Harper." Lying there, watching the heart monitor's steady beep, he wondered if it was time to let go. His father wouldn't want him dead over dirt. Then Cynthia appeared in his doorway, her faux concern undercut by a triumphant gleam. Beside her stood a man in a suit Elliot from city planning. She said, carrying a purchase agreement. "We heard about your health scare," she cooed. "This could solve everything. Sell now, avoid the fines." The offer was insultingly low, a fraction of his land's worth. Before Daniel could respond, his nurse, Maria, stormed in, eyeing the spiking monitor. "Out. Now. He needs rest." They left, but the papers stayed, a taunting reminder of their audacity. 2 days later, discharged with pills and a warning to avoid stress, Daniel returned home to find 2 men on his land, one a city inspector, the other private security. "Preliminary assessment." The inspector grunted, barely looking up. "It's in the notice." Daniel's pulse raced. "This is private property. You need permission." They left without apology, but not before he spotted yellow flags dotting his land labeled NVY environmental testing sites. No one had asked. No one had explained. Then he saw the gate ajar, its new padlock cut. Panic clawed at him as he ran to the goat pen. Hank and Newton bleated a greeting, but Maisie and Clover were gone. He searched, shouting their names, Tom and Ruth joining the hunt. Hours later, they found Maisie trembling behind a neighbor's shed, half a mile away. Clover wasn't so lucky. A midnight call from Tom confirmed the worsted driver had hit her on Pine Road. Daniel found her battered but alive, her leg twisted at a sickening angle. The vet bill was due lot 2,000, a gut punch to his retirement essay VYNGS, but he paid it without hesitation. While he was at the vet, more papers evade a citation for violations of pending ordinances, due law 300 daily fines, and a sheriff's notice declaring his property a public nuisance in a joint HOA city complaint. That night, with Clover whimpering in a recovery pen, Daniel stared at the legal stack, exhaustion warring with fury. Someone had cut his lock. Someone wanted his goats and him gone. The next day, a silver-haired woman approached him at the mailbox. "Mr. Harper, I'm Lillian Carter. Moved in down the street last month." Before he could reply, a city truck rolled up, 2 officials striding onto his land. Lillian's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Do you have a warrant?" They froze. "Follow-up inspection," one muttered, flashing a badge. "That's not a warrant," she snapped. "You're trespassing." They retreated, and over coffee, Lillian revealed her pasta constitutional lawyer, 30 years defending property rights after her family lost their farm to eminent domain. "Show me everything," she said, eyeing his papers. "This stinks of overreach." For 3 days, they dug through Records County deeds, city archives, old surveys. Lillian uncovered gold. Daniel's land retained a 1970 agricultural exemption, never rescinded, and a botched annexation 15 years prior left it under county, not city, jurisdiction. Then came the bombshelly USB drive from a retired clerk, haunted by closed-door council dealings. The recording crackled with Nathan's voice. Harper's place is the linchpin. Secure it, and the CIVYC Center project's greenlit. Emails followed, exposing a scheme city planners had seeded the HOA to push out problem properties like Daniel's, promising tax breaks to compliant board members. His land wasn't just a target, it was the prize. This isn't about goats, Lillian said, her voice low. It's corruption masquerading as regulation. They built their case exemption docs, boundary errors, damning audio filing a countersuit against the HOA and city, naming Cynthia and Nathan for abuse of power. Lillian leaked the story to a state journalist, and whispers of their fight spread. The night before the council vote on the modernization ordinance, Daniel couldn't sleep, rehearsing his words, clinging to hope. The meeting room overflowed neighbors, reporters, tension thick as fog. Nathan tried to rush the vote, but Lillian rose, calm and lethal. Point of order. I'm here to expose illegal government action. She laid out the EVY Denke, the annexation flaw, the exemption, then played Nathan's voice plotting his scheme. The room hushed, then exploded as Nathan lunged to stop the audio. Too late. A woman strode in Grace Torres, State Attorney General's office. Table this vote. We're investigating. The council crumbled, tabling the ordinance, reimbursing Daniel's costs, and protecting heritage properties permanently. Weeks later, Daniel's land became a state-recognized agricultural heritage site, immune to future threats. Cynthia and Nathan resigned amid ethics probes, their CIVYC Center dream dead. Daniel's porch became a hub for neighbors learning their rights, his goats mascots of resilience. Clover healed, her story inspiring local kids who dubbed themselves Clover's Guardians. The fight that began with a few goats had ignited a movement, pro-VYing, that when Americans stand against overreach, liberty still holds ground. If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this VY Deo with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next VY Deo.